Um, Wonderful. Welcome to our lunchtime session with the incredible Erin Carroll Manning from Gentle Giraffes. Erin is a 30-year plus master newborn care specialist, infant specialist, and she is here to talk to us about setting up healthy and sustainable routines for ourselves and for our families. And we were just sort of talking offline about how all of the experiences that led me to create Be Her Village, which, as many of you know, is a gift registry for Support Not Stuff, helping parents get the funds to afford people like Erin. That experience that led me to realize we needed care was exactly what Erin and I are going to be talking about today. It was this like getting thrown into motherhood and not having routines set up for myself or for my baby because I had never thought to need them before. You know, when you're like 27 and you're have all the time in the world to nap and pee and cook and do whatever at any whim, being handed a newborn was really abruptly changing my life. And so I am personally have investment in this conversation. Erin, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us and for being here to talk about this. Feel free, by the way, to introduce yourself way better than I did. You have a very long list of accomplishments. So welcome, and please take the floor.
Well, thank you so much, Caitlin. I really appreciate that you guys reached out to do this. This is one of my passions, is talking about healthy and sustainable routines, because they can literally start from day one, which I think there's a lot of misconception about what they are. So as you mentioned, I do have 30 years or 30 plus years actually in the private childcare industry. I am a master newborn care specialist through one of the national best training programs out there. I've been actually doing this work for probably about 10 years, and I absolutely love it. And I love talking to families about being able to have their lives be what I call, a healthy and sustainable routines, because as we know, at the end of the day, babies are very unpredictable, and they can make your life really overwhelming to their every move, their every noise, and all of that stuff too. So when we can kind of put a little bit of organization around it all, it can help everybody. Not only that, you and I talked a little bit about how when you were having your children, you were very ingrained in, or thought process was in attachment parenting, which is an awesome way to bring up your children. However, it can be very overwhelming too. And so I like to bring that in, and also bring in independent parenting as well, and kind of bring the best of both worlds.
Yes,
with that.
I'm so glad that we talked about that, because I absolutely I love attachment parenting. I think it's so important, that sort of that philosophy, that school of thought. But I think for me, and this is really just my own experience, it doesn't mean anything for anybody else, but in my experience, I don't think I struck a great balance in attachment and responsiveness to my infant, to my newborn, to my child. I mean, even now, and also putting my own oxygen mask on first, right? It was like this need to be hyper responsive all the time, which makes it hard to set up routines, which makes it hard to make sure that I'm ever being cared for, that I'm ever a priority in the relationship. And it's like that mindset shift that I think that there's maybe somewhere I could have found a better balance in. Attachment parenting is wonderful, but if you're not providing a stable attachment to like a person that is stable to attach to, then that's sort of a missing piece there. So what does it look like, Erin? How do we even begin? Like, say we're sitting here and we're pregnant. And we've never heard of or thought about creating a routine. Where do we begin thinking about that?
Yeah, so I always tell families too, especially when they come home from the hospital, if they're choosing to breastfeed, our main concern in general is just making sure that the baby's getting enough food, and that you also are establishing your supply. So that is like the number one thing that we do focus on probably in the first couple of weeks. Whether that's also getting an IBCLC in there, we're getting baby assessed for ties, we're getting an OT in there, we're getting all these different people to be able to help that and support that, which I think is a lot of misconception about that as well. Babies, yes, it's natural to breastfeed, but they're not always equipped with being able to breastfeed right away from day one. So I know that causes a lot of stress and anxiety for parents from day one, especially when you're in the hospital and the hospital's telling you, we've got to do formula, you're not producing milk, your baby's not gaining weight, and that right then and there has just set you up for being, hyper vigilant about making sure that your baby's getting fed and that you are responding or reacting really to every single noise that they're making. And every time they wake, oh, they must be hungry, they must be this. When a lot of that is also a misconception too, because not every time a baby makes a noise or wakes up, are they actually hungry? So there's a lot of things that we have to also juggle when we first come into the home, especially in the first couple of weeks. So I like to kind of tailor it down and be like, we're just going to work on making sure that you're getting the supply that you need and that your baby's actually growing. And let's take one step at a time and let's just focus on that. So I like to have our clients feed around the clock every 2 hours.
Okay.
24 hours, especially the first 2 weeks, unless they have a really good, healthy supply and the baby's gaining weight really well. Then we can kind of focus on other things, but majority of the time we are having to go over some hurdles and challenges with breastfeeding. So let's figure that out first before we work on anything else.
So, oh, go ahead. I don't want to.
And I was just going to say, and then it comes down to what has the baby actually shown me what they may need. And then we can kind of go from there. I don't want to overwhelm parents right from the beginning. So we're going to talk about what is actually important, the next step that's important. And then we can talk about other things. However, we also talk about swaddling and putting a baby down in a dark room when they're sleeping and putting it with the sound machine and stuff. Those are also healthy routines that are really simple that we can also, start from day one as well.
I love that. I would argue that right behind that initial fear of your baby not gaining weight and breastfeeding working, once you get the baby gaining and you feel a little bit confident in that area, the vast majority of parents are next worried about sleep, because it's such a disruptive thing to not get good sleep and to not have that built in. And it really, for me, I know that it was mental health care. A good night of sleep or a good chunk of sleep set me up for a good next day, and it helped me stay more level and even. And it's one of those things that's like, taking care of a newborn doesn't sound that hard, but when you're in it and you have not slept, everything is harder. Like, it's just.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not even just sleeping. Your body's also going through recovery.
Right.
I find it, so many of our clients, like you said, you didn't prioritize yourself. They don't prioritize their self either, but their body is going through so much change that just without even a newborn, that's exhausting in itself.
Yes.
And so we have to balance the two, because like you said, getting a night of sleep or a good chunk of night of sleep is really healthy in a lot of different ways, especially your mental and emotional, health. If we can get that and figure out how we can get that, even if they don't have in-home support, that can make a world of difference and reduce the amount of postpartum anxiety, postpartum stress, postpartum depression, all of that stuff going forward as well.
Okay, so I wanna talk about sleep, but I want to come back to this breastfeeding idea of because they seem to be competing in the way I'm receiving it. So I want to make sure that we sort of like parse this out. Every 2 hours around the clock sounds relaxing in one way, because and it might not for everybody, but it sounds like, okay, it's just every 2 hours, I can do that. But it also, because it sounds like it might reduce cluster feeding. It sounds like it reduces the, like, should I, at every cry and wiggle, should I offer the breast, that sort of thing. But I wonder how that pairs with getting a good chunk of sleep at night. Does the recommendation change overnight, or can you speak a little bit to that?
I don't recommend changing it overnight, although a lot of parents do. What I recommend is that's when it's really important to have somebody come in during the day, to be able to help you. Or if you want the night help, to be able to help you too, because then they can also be able to, handle if the baby's being fussy. They can change the baby. They can do all of those things while you're going right back to sleep. So you're literally just feeding and going right back to sleep. But having somebody during the day to take care of all that other stuff that women, especially women, worry about, the laundry, the dishes, making sure they're eating, all of that stuff is really taxing on the brain and emotions too, because it's something that we are ingrained to be able to do. It's almost kind of like nesting in a little bit of, our way. Plus you have so many people coming in and out of your house during that time, so they want to see the baby, say congratulations to you. And so you're worried about if your house is clean, all this different stuff. So I say recommending at least have somebody come in during the day, during those 2 weeks, to be able to help with all that. Make sure you're eating, make sure you're staying hydrated, make sure if you can get a nap during the day, perfect, go for it. They can do the laundry for you. They can do all these other things. I also have told clients too, is tell people nobody can come to the house for the first 2 weeks at all. Let's reduce that stress right away. Just because that's really stressful for people. I understand, immediate grandparents and siblings, they want to come and see the baby, but also let's respect the fact that this is huge transition for, not only the birthing parent, but also the partner as well. And let them get used to, having a baby and how's it going to be without having to worry about entertaining, people coming to the house.
I love that. And what I'm hearing you say, which feels sort of exciting and new and also not new and what we've been doing forever, which is so much of our work, right? Is like reminding us of what used to work for us as humans, is in order to establish this breastfeeding routine that relieves the stressor of the instant constant responsiveness, you're almost forced to build in the care for yourself and your home and your family. Like you literally cannot breastfeed a baby every 2 hours around the clock without having sleep, food, cleaning, chores, and the other parts of your life, especially if it's not your first baby.
Yep.
Your older kids have an entire life and social and all these things that they need to have cared for. So
Yep.
it forces you into that. I'm wondering how long, like what is the point from the every 2 hours into a more sustainable, how is that evolution through the more
So it's going to depend on how well the baby's gaining weight. And again, then it's also going to show me personally what else is going on. Is the baby, do we have oral dysfunction happening? Do we have mom with a low supply? Do we have like what else is going on? I will be able to, kind of see that. And then we can move into different avenues and which way to go. Now, if everything is going really well, baby's gaining weight well, mom's got a great supply, and it hasn't even been 2 weeks, then we might let's go into following with what newborns actually follow. Yeah, a lot of people talk about they're upside down in their sleep. They're awake during the night and they're asleep during the day, which actually makes a lot of sense when you're pregnant. You think about it, you're working and walking and doing all sorts of things during the day, and then at night you're laying down and you're resting. So during the day when you're up doing different things, it's almost like a swing for the baby. So they're constantly just moving. So it's relaxing for them. And then at night, when you're laying down and you're like, I just want sleep, the baby's like, yes, it's time to party. Yeah, because they're like, all right, I've been lulled and moved to sleep all day long. So, that makes a lot of sense with that. So what we want to do is kind of reverse that. So what I do with our clients is I'm like, most of the times babies wake up between 6 and 7 in the morning and they go to bed between 6 and 7 at night. Again, you and I talked about earlier about how when you go camping, you live off of the sun. Yes. This is almost living off of the sun where, between 6 and 7 is pretty much when the sun comes up, and typically 6 to 7 is when the sun goes down. So we're kind of doing that. We're also not letting the baby go more than 3 hours in the middle of the day without eating as well. You don't want that because you want to make sure that they are getting enough sleep during the day. But if they're going to have long stretches, you want their long stretches at night.
Right. That makes
sense.
So
this is also helps with that as well. So what I do with clients is I say we're going to do an eat, play, sleep routine where they're going to eat when they wake up at like 6 or 7 in the morning. That's your awake time. Then you're going to play. Your play for a newborn can literally be, I'm just staring at you for 5 minutes.
Right. Let's set the expectations here. They're new.
Yes. So, I mean, it's not huge. It's not like you have to put a rattle in front of their face. You have to do this. You have to understand too, is that that's really overstimulating for a baby as well. So we want to be able to reduce as much stimulation as possible for them because everything is learning for them. Their whole entire nervous system is bouncing off different smells, different noises, different this, different that. So that can be overwhelming. So when we can reduce all of that too, and just bring it down to something really small that they can focus on, it's really helping them actually grow faster and learn faster in the long run.
Okay, so I love all of this. One of the things that's coming up for me is that my breasts and my nursing felt like one of my, not my only tools, but it was a heavily relied on tool. And I think this is part of what excites me, is that we're talking about offering like an additional toolkit to parents. So, but here's one of the questions I have is, many times eat, play, sleep was not my routine because getting the baby to sleep was done by feeding them. So I'm wondering how that squares up for parents who either are already in that or sort of expect to be in that, and perhaps are in this attachment parenting realm where we're told that that is the hormonal, physiological
And
nature
it is, and
of
it works. It
yeah,
works. It works really, really well. And it works really well for comforting. But then it comes down to, is your baby actually really hungry? Or are we missing the cues of what's actually hungry and what's actually tired? They can be really the same kind of, but it's also going to be like, oh, my baby's been up for 2 hours. That's a long time for a newborn. So yes, they might be crying because they're overtired, they're overstimulated. So now we also have to take a little bit longer time to be able to help them get to sleep. And helping them get to sleep is never leaving them, is always being right there. You can have your hand on them, you can rock them, you can do all these different things that's letting them know that you are right there supporting them through this challenge that they're having, to be able to get their nervous systems to relax enough so that they actually go to sleep. It's kind of the same thing when you're dealing with a toddler and they have a tantrum. You
yeah,
do not want to change the tantrum, because that's telling the toddler they can't have their feelings. You
right.
want to be able to be there and support them through that. So you're doing that by sitting next to them, offering a hug, whatever it could possibly be, but you're not telling them to stop their tantrum. You're just letting them know, I understand you're having big feelings, and we're going to work through this, and we're going to do it together. Same thing with a newborn. I understand you're having big feelings about this. I get it. You're overtired, and we're going to put you to sleep, and I'm going to be right here helping you, right
Right.
next to you. And that's, again, where part of the attachment parenting comes into as well, because you are actually there with your child.
Right. Nobody's being left alone in a crib to cry. We are helping. So it's so interesting to me, because I think right now I'm so receptive to this, because I feel like one of the products of my own postpartum anxiety was sort of underestimating the capability of my children. Like, I thought that they needed just the one thing, and I didn't know that there was another way. And every time, what I would end up doing is finding myself struggling, finding myself underslept, finding myself the only person that could put the babies down. I still have like bedtime trauma from the fact that I was the only person that could put my baby down, and I was the only person that could go and take care of my baby when they inevitably woke up an hour and a half later. It really became this incredible pressure on me that my physical presence and body was needed around the clock 24/7 for at least 6 months. It really, like, I don't know, it doesn't sound like that big of a deal now because I'm out of it, but it was trying for me. And so this feels exciting as someone who's out of it now, to sort of trust our children to be able to be receptive and learn, as long as their needs are being met. Because there is this balance, right? There's like definitely books that tell you like schedule it and that's it. That's the end of it. Like, go by the schedule and nothing else. And I think that there's definitely a balance that needs to be struck. And I wonder if you could speak to like some of the flexibility that is allowed or recommended by you when we are setting up routines.
So yeah, then that's also comes back to actually learning your baby. Like you said, you felt like you had to be there 24/7 for them and always the one that's on with them. That can also kind of hinder learning what the baby's actually telling you. So
Right.
that's what it really comes down to, is kind of taking a step back, taking those 10, deep breaths, and being like, all right, what does my baby actually need? Instead of being hyper vigilant and be like, oh my gosh, I just have to feed my baby. My baby's just hungry. They could be working out gas. They could be working, into another sleep cycle, all these different things. So it's looking at them and going, all right, my baby's eyes are closed. Oh, okay. Their legs are lifting up. Oh, this, that, all those different things, and really learning them. Now, if the baby was screaming at the top of their lungs and their eyes were wide awake, run to them and pick them up. Absolutely. But
Right.
if it's just kind of like a little whine, a cry, and you can kind of see that they're just still asleep, see how that's going to play out before you actually intervene, because you might actually realize that, oh my gosh, the baby just went back to sleep for another hour.
Yeah. So this is reminding me of one of my favorite parenting books, Bringing Home Bebe, which is
Yes.
a Pamela Druckerman. She raises her baby. Everyone should go get the book right now from the library. She raises her baby in Paris. She's an American from like Brooklyn, from Park Slope, Brooklyn, and she goes and lives in Paris and has her babies there. And it's such an interesting sort of commentary on American parenting versus French parenting. But chapter 3, I still remember it. I haven't touched this book in 10 years. Chapter 3 is about la pause, and it's exactly what you're describing. It is your baby might not be crying for you. So give them a pause, let them work it out. Sometimes they settle, sometimes they don't. And it's not abusive or harmful or any of the things I probably would have told myself it was. It's really just a communication factor, and giving them, again, not underestimating your child to figure some things out for themselves.
Well, exactly. So that starts pretty much at like 8 weeks. I'm like, let's start it way earlier than that, personally. Especially as long as we are meeting their basic needs. They're sleeping, they're eating, they're, pooping, they're peeing, like all those basic needs are being met. Let's kind of work into that other stuff, because that's part of their basic need too. They need to be able to know how their body works and feel how their body's working. And if they are just going to pass gas, or they're just going to, move into a sleep cycle, we want them to learn that, instead of always having to all of a sudden get into the habit or routine of us intervening and doing it for them. And then what do we have to do at 6 months? We have to undo all of that stuff that we just intervened for. And then it becomes a whole different thing, where what I like to teach is, with the healthy and happy routines, that we never have to change them, because
So you don't end up having to make this big, like, will I cry it out? How will I get the baby to sleep? You're essentially saying, put the foundational building blocks in of a routine, and as they mature and grow, that will be there.
And also, yes, exactly. But also too, as we do this, and, as I say, the pause, or the French call it the la pause, is you are, as I said, learning your baby, but you're also building confidence in yourself, of knowing how to respond to your child and respond to them correctly, instead of, putting your own projections onto the child. Which is really, really empowering for people when they tell me, oh my gosh, Erin, I did it. And, my baby went back to sleep, or my baby did this, or they showed me this. And it's awesome, because now they know whether, because there's some cues that aren't textbooks as well. So it's just really, Americans aren't relaxed in general. So
We're not known for that.
No, we're not. So it's also just making sure that our nervous system is okay, and not literally taking those breaths and relaxing ourselves, like they are taught in meditation, is really helpful. I've done this when I was nannying for even infants. I would literally just breathe with them when they would be crying. I would breathe, I would do everything. Now, I understand I don't have the emotional attachment to these babies like parents do, but the effect still works, because when I was with some clients, or nanny families, from when the babies were newborns and they became toddlers, and I did all of this, they were attached to me in certain ways, because I was always there. Just like, if there was a grandmother always in the house, or if there was, some other family member too. And when they got to be toddlers, and I would pick them up or do something, and I'd be like, we're just going to relax and take a deep breath, I watched them be able to do that on their own as they got older, or they would start it as soon as I picked them up. So it really was able to help them, start it from here and teach them and guide them. And then they started to pick up on that routine as they were able to, cognitively understand what was kind of going on.
Wow, that's incredible. As biological mammals and creatures, babies really do, they're so in tune with the energy and the emotions of their caregiver, of the person who's holding them. And what I'm thinking of as I'm listening is, like, I was a hyper responsive parent. That was just how I parented. It was all I knew. It felt good. It felt good to respond. It didn't feel good to completely abandon myself, which is why we're talking about this. But I feel like there is also this, like, hyper awareness that comes in. Like, you almost always have to be on alert, because you always have to make sure everything's okay. There's something deeply relaxing about knowing that your children's needs and your infant and newborn needs are met, and that you have time to meet your own, and that you have tools, and that building in a routine, even if it's not the routine that you've just laid out, it sounds like that is what works for you and your clients. Even just building in some sort of framework for your day and for the rhythm of your life can really actually help all of us take a deep breath, because we don't feel like we need to be on this hyper alert all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how many parents I tell them, finish going peeing when you hear your baby crying. Just finish peeing. That is a self-care tactic, for you. You do not have to run to them. We have to understand too, that just because a baby's crying for like a minute, you're finishing the last dish, or something like that is not going to set them up for anything, any emotional damage later on. You're also just teaching them patience. You're also just teaching them real life situations that are going to happen throughout your entire life, that are going to happen throughout their entire life. Like, they are going to have to wait, especially if they have a sibling that comes after them. They're going to have to learn how to wait for, you to finish with that sibling. All these different things. These are just natural everyday things that we take for granted, I guess, without having children. But then when we have children, we kind of forget that this is just natural, and that everything evolves around them. And going back to that is, you got to take care of yourself first. As we all say, it's probably cliche, but you can't pour from an empty cup. And these small little things are part of being able to fill your cup. It really is. I mean, I have told parents that if they are really struggling and having a hard time and their baby is really, upset for whatever reason, put your baby down in the crib where it's safe and go scream into a pillow, go take 10 breaths, go do something like that, because that is healthy for you. And ultimately it's healthy for your baby. Now, getting back to just like the routine. So you kind of do the eat, play, sleep all day long, but you want to make sure that you're getting them into the same environment when it comes to sleeping with that. So like I said, it's, you want to swaddle, you want the room completely dark. You do not want light coming in from the outside of the windows or outside the curtains either. Those kind of things, and swaddling them and kind of doing that rotation. Ultimately, it's going to be every 3 hours with that. But then you're going to also get down to putting your baby to bed. A lot of people are like, oh, I put my baby to bed between 9 and 11. Well, that's when parents go to bed. So then a lot of people, when they have kids, and then they're like, oh, but they wake up between like 9 and 11 in the morning. Okay, but then when the children get a little bit older, they're like even like 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, and they're still going to bed somewhere between 9 and 11 and waking up between 9 and 11. That's not healthy for anybody.
No.
And so why are we starting that instead of starting what is really natural and what is going to actually end up coming as time goes on? You think about it, you put them down between 6 and 7, that's when the sun goes down. Babies are technically taking what people call a nap between that time. And if you actually just put them in their room where they're going to be for the night, whether it's at your room or their room, what have you, or you could move them, or even in like the guest bedroom if it's on the same floor as you, all these different things. Put them down then, and then everything between like 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. happens in that room. You feeding them, you're changing them, you're getting them, you're rocking them, you're all that kind of stuff, but it's happening in a nighttime environment. So they get used to, this is nighttime and this is daytime.
I love that. And so much of this is recognizing that our children are capable, that they're learning from day one, that they are not little blank slates, that they are not helpless. They actually come out of the womb with skills. They know how to find their food. They know how to find their caregiver. They know how to sense if they're in danger or not. Part of this is like an interesting fact that I find to be just like how incredible children are. Part of the reason why they will not fuss as much when you're walking with them versus when you sit and stay still with them is because the mammalian response to being carried, they're often being carried from danger. So they quiet down, they settle down and go into this sort of calmer state when they're being carried and moving, which causes lots of parents to walk and rock. For most, I still rock when I'm standing in line in a place.
Oh, absolutely. Or you can change that and you can really work through the fussiness and getting the baby to know, okay, I'm still safe in this person's arms, even though that they're sitting down.
Right. It's just incredible, their capacity for learning and for being skillful from the very beginning. It's just a beautiful thing. I am so grateful for you, Erin, for coming here. I want to just we were supposed to end at 12:30, but if Jess or Hallie, if you guys have questions, just put them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask them. I also, while people are coming up with questions, if they have any, a lot of people are going to be watching this in the recording. Erin, how can people reach out to you if somebody watches this and is like, oh my God, I need Erin for my upcoming baby, or I am in the middle of not doing any of this and I need to be in contact with Erin and her deep wisdom on this topic? How can people reach you and find you to ask questions?
Thank you. So people can go to our website at gentlegiraffes.com. they can, fill out that form and mention in like the notes that you're looking for maybe virtual, or you're looking for, some sleep, healthy sleep habits and stuff. We do have some packages on that, or if they're looking for some of our main packages that we do have for day and night support as well. They can go there, or they can also just email me directly at gentlegiraffes1082@gmail.com for that as well.
And is this location dependent, or people from all over can reach out to you?
So people from all over can. There's a huge industry where there's a lot of people who will fly all over the country to do live and work, basically. But then we also offer a lot of virtual stuff too. So we have virtual packages that we can help people with, depending on what they're looking for, whether it's just one consultation or they're looking for, 2 months or 6 months of just tech support or video support and stuff too, to be able to get that. Whereas we also have, the in-home stuff too.
Wonderful. It's so great that there are people like you that are helping parents figure this all out. Part of Be Her Village and our mission to connect people with professionals that support them is that the village used to exist in actual multifamily, multi-generational small villages or apartments or multifamily homes. And there used to be all of this knowledge that you have gathered across your 30-year career. It used to be that that's what our mothers and grandmothers and aunties and neighbors would bring to us. And that just doesn't exist right now in this experimental 2023 motherhood in America. And that's where professionals like you are such a big part of the village, of connecting us back with that wisdom for caring for ourselves and our babies. So I'm really grateful for you being part of Be Her Village, and for showing up every day and helping parents through this time. It really can make such a big difference in how we experience, how motherhood feels for us and how we experience this shift into this next part of our life. So I'm really grateful for you.
Well, thank you. I'm grateful for you guys too. I love the fact that you have Be Her Village, where people can go and find packages of, practitioners or postpartum doulas or sleep consultants or feeding specialists, or, any of those kind of services for people as well too. It's kind of putting everybody in one area so that they can look for them and know that they're right there. So thank you so much for starting that.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. It's so exciting. There's so many exciting things that are about to happen, which we could talk about on a different call. But yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody. And hi, Jess. I love you. Jess.
Hey, I love you. And Erin, I love you also. Haley, I love you too.
Thank you.
Wow, what a transformative conversation. Thank you so much to both of you, because what a wealth of knowledge you have, Erin and Caitlin. I know you do too. I'm so appreciative. This was wonderful.
Thanks,
Thank you so much, Jess. I love your shirt too.
Thank you.
Amazing. Hallie, thanks for joining us too. And thanks to everybody who's watching this on the recording. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye.